Welcome back to Sunday Vibes, one and all. It's me, it's Chris, and it's Pato, back to answer your best questions. I feel like that was a slightly different intro to what I usually do, but nevertheless, we're sticking with it. Pato, how have you been this week, mate?
I'm great, man. I'm actually really good. I'm enjoying lockdown being over. I'm back in the gym. I've got tomorrow off. I feel good.
I absolutely love the positivity, Pato. That's made my day, I'm not going to lie. Hamster, how are you?
Yeah, I'm quite sad that you no longer even say we're not back in the pub yet. It's like you've lost all hope. So that intro's actually taken a life out of me a little bit.
Oh, well, let's pump some life back into you. Not like that, obviously, commenters. But let's reinflate you here because we've had some quality questions sent in this week. In fact, we've had loads of questions. So we thought we'd mix it up a little bit and do a little bit more of a mailbag. So we're going to answer more than just the one headline question and one quick-fire question. We're going to give you 6 or 7, probably, over the course of the next 40-odd minutes. Should we just crack straight on with it then?
Yeah. Let's go for it, man.
All right, let's not mess about because a lot of the questions were about Manchester United, obviously, after yet another catastrophe midweek. The first one, sent in by Milan de Jong. Can Man United continue under Ollie or is a trainer switch required? Let's keep this one very brief because we've chatted about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer being sacked and somebody else coming in for about the last 6 months. Hamster, anything to add to this one?
Yeah, sure. I'll start things. Yeah, it feels like it's becoming more untenable by the week, doesn't it? Allegri is now being more heavily linked, although that is kind of an angle we've always poo-pooed. It doesn't feel like Manchester United would double down on Allegri without going, balls to the walls for Pochettino, and that Pochettino link's gone a little bit cold in recent months, hasn't it? So I think the big question is, will Manchester United be brave enough to part ways with Ollie and Pogba in January? It feels like it's going to be one of them. Obviously, Pogba's got, 18 months left on his contract. Raiola has said that he wants to go sooner rather than later. And Ollie's sort of trying to manage that situation as well, right? And if he goes, maybe it buys Ollie a bit more time. Maybe he can bring in another big signing that he wants to fit into his system, although the last big signing they made in Donny van der Beek is currently being played out of position, so there is that as well. I'm sure we'll touch upon recruitment in a second, but maybe what could anchor this conversation, this Sunday Vibes, is they both make it through the winter window, Joe.
Do you think they both do? I'm pretty sure they will both make it through January. I'd be extremely surprised to see either of them leave the club this winter. I'd be very, very shocked. What do you think, Pato? Do you think they'll still both be here come February?
Probably, yeah. I just don't see who pays the required fee for Pogba in January. I'm not even sure who pays the required fee for him in the summer, to be honest with you, when there's a year left on his contract. As for Ollie, I mean, we've said it before, like, I think he's a perfectly decent coach. I'm actually not sure what someone like Allegri offers over Ollie. Like, Allegri is a good defensive coach. Maybe he's a bit better kind of in a one-on-one matchup in, say, the Champions League knockout stages. But Ollie, I think, is a perfectly competent defensive coach most of the time. They just need to upgrade some of the talent in key positions. I don't know, man. Like, in a way, it might have pushed him towards the exit door if United had lost 3-0 to RB Leipzig, which they probably should have. Like, I mean, the penalty they got wasn't a penalty. The header was also a handball. Like, I don't think either of those goals were real, I guess. And, you know, being humiliated quite often does prompt a change in thinking from a club hierarchy. But to be honest with you, I don't see the point in sacking him right now unless you either feel like somebody's going to come in and completely change the season, or if somebody's available who you don't think will be available come the summer. And yes, there are guys like Pochettino or whatever, but actually I think a lot of managers would rather come in the summer. So from United's point of view, you might as well give Ollie till the end of the season and instead just hire a director of football. Ralph Rangnick is sitting on his ass with nothing to do. Like, just go and hire him and let him jam the club full of like 23-year-old kids who know how to play modern football. And I think you'll see an improvement in results.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the only way that Manchester United part company with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is when it's mathematically impossible to qualify for the Champions League, and that will hit us in the pockets, and that's the reason that he'll go. I don't see any way that he goes in January or over the next few weeks. I think it'd be really shocking to me. And likewise, Paul Pogba. I don't see Paul Pogba leaving in January. Totally agree with Pat. Who pays the money in January? Every club is currently struggling financially with COVID-19. Juventus are already struggling with the wage demands of Cristiano Ronaldo. How on earth do they afford Paul Pogba's £300,000 a week on top of that? It's just not going to happen. Real Madrid, no chance in January for Pogba there. Just not at the required level, and also money. Barcelona, money. PSG, most viable candidate, I would say, PSG. But I think it would only happen should Neymar or Mbappe leave in the summer to free up a bit of wage bill. I did see one question from Tamish Bahal here. He said, thoughts on Jamie Carragher labelling Paul Pogba as the most overrated player he's ever seen. Now, we don't usually do this, but here is that clip of Jamie Carragher.
What's the best solution?
Get rid. I've been saying this for 12 months. Oh my God, most overrated player I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I think the two of them are a disgrace. We'll all look at the agent now and say, as you said, ask Pogba, what does he think? Agents in this day and age, they're not just agents. They're a parent, they're the best friend, they're the financial advisor, they book holidays, they go away with each other. Those two will be like that. He'll be Pogba's best mate. So Pogba will be well aware of what was going to come out of his mouth. And if he wasn't, he should sack his agent. It's very, very simple. That's all that needs to happen. I mean, I don't know where he's going to go. Who's going to have him? I don't get it.
Well, is this now about a financial arrangement that works? That they're all looking for the best possible solution for all parties, and Raiola is just trying to aggravate that and make it happen as quickly as possible.
Why do that? Man United want rid of him. Don't kid yourself. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's been playing Scott McTominay and Fred in front of him in midfield, and he's had to put him in because he was resting players. You're saying he hasn't played for a month. He hasn't been out. Yeah, he had a bit of an injury, but before that, he was on the bench.
So, Hamster, what did you make of Jamie Carragher's thoughts there, and do you agree with him?
Well, let's backtrack a little bit, because I think we run the risk of overdoing it, of besmirching his sort of Premier League legacy, if you want to call it a legacy, a little bit too much because of how disastrous the last 12 to 18 months have been, right? And it has been rough. Only 13 Premier League starts last campaign because of those persistent ankle injuries. He only contributed to 4 goals and assists, which was the lowest in his senior career. He scored 5 goals for Juventus in his breakout campaign. So a real personal low for him. But tricky, like I said, with that ankle injury, managing it really proved difficult, didn't it? And yeah, this season, the 27-year-old, more appearances off the bench than starts, although he has put up 3 goal contributions. And there has been moments in games, such as his cameo against Leipzig, where he's injected, much needed creativity and class into Manchester United's midfield. But he still looks resigned to the fact that Bruno Fernandes is probably playing in the position he wants to, and he doesn't want to feature in a double pivot. And the downturn in form has also coincided with these repeated sort of calculated appearances, quotes in the press that are all, I suppose, geared towards forcing United's hand and selling him, right? Like it could be time to have a new challenge somewhere else after a really good 18-19 season. That kind of took some of the shine off of it for the fans, so to speak. He's repeatedly called Real Madrid a dream for anyone in this period too. And it's becoming harder, isn't it, to shake off that narrative where Mourinho called him a virus. Everyone's, not everyone at the time. I suppose it was quite divisive at the time, wasn't it? In that some people were team Mourinho, some people were team Pogba. And now Mourinho is in the ascendancy again, and people are sort of revisiting that, like, oh, Jose was right, and Paul Pogba is just nothing but a bad influence on this side. And I'm sure we'll unpack the comments that Raiola made, more recently in just a second. I'd probably be more interested to hear your opinion on that than give mine, because I'm not really arsed either way. But let's not forget that he had a fantastic 3 years at Manchester United. 88 league starts, 47 goal contributions, and from 16-17 right through to 18-19, consistently United's best creator. And there were times where he was doing more than that, or asked to play sort of multiple positions, and his physical exertion, let's say, has waned in that period, and people use that to criticise him. But I'd say last season was his only real failure, and obviously this season very much hangs in the balance. Do you think that's fair as a United fan?
Yeah, as a United fan, I definitely think he was impressive for the first 2.5 years. 100% agree with you on that one. And obviously people can still see he's an incredibly gifted footballer, so technically sound. But the issue is now, really, for Paul, is that 12 months have gone by where he's played barely any football. A player has arrived that plays in his position and is better than him at football, in Bruno Fernandes. And he isn't willing to do the hard yards required to play in a different position to carve out a role for himself within this team. I think he would rather leave and find a new club in which he can play in that position than battle for the role itself, which is fair enough. If he wants to do that, I'm totally relaxed with letting him leave at this stage. I think Manchester United probably knew that he was going to leave and wanted to leave for quite some time, hence the reason Donny van de Beek was brought in last summer. And people will probably say it's going to be a mistake letting Pogba go, in the same way Romelu Lukaku was a mistake letting Romelu Lukaku go. But I stick by the fact I don't think it was a mistake letting Romelu Lukaku leave, to be totally honest with you. It at the time didn't work for both parties, and at the time right now it's not working for both parties with Pogba and United either. Romelu Lukaku has gone on to score plenty of goals for Inter Milan, and he was scoring plenty of goals for United as well. But there was a clash with Lukaku in how we wanted to play football. He struggled in the big moments, in the big games. His record against the top six was absolutely horrific. I think he only ever scored one goal for Manchester United against the top six. And Paul Pogba, in a different way, is reminiscent of that. Not necessarily having impact against the top six, but general attitude to some of the smaller matches. Paul Pogba doesn't step up to the plate in a way he needs to step up to a plate, where he should be just taking games by the scruff of the neck. He should be dominating midfields against the likes of West Ham, but it took 45 minutes for Bruno Fernandes to come on before he finally decided to show up in that game. I think that's a pretty prime example of Paul Pogba's biggest issues at Manchester United. So I'm absolutely relaxed letting Paul Pogba go. I think he's going to have real issues finding his next club, though, as I said earlier. He's probably going to have to admit that he's not going to get that Real Madrid move, in my opinion. I do agree with Jamie on that sense. I don't see him taking the step to Real Madrid. I think there are much better options on the market than Paul Pogba for the price Manchester United will be asking for him if you're Real Madrid. So I can see him going back to Juventus, or I can see him going to Paris. And I think it's a shame, because he has had so many issues at Manchester United that people do forget at times how good he has been. And I don't really want that to happen. But like you said, Hamster, like the calculated moves within the press, they're really disheartening as a Manchester United fan. I think any fan base that has a player like Pogba who is kind of leaking to the press via his agent that he wants to leave the club at key moments wouldn't be happy with that player. It's not just Manchester United fans.
I've got a question for you. Do you think because of United's... Let's just pretend I'm Team Pogba for a second. Do you think he has the right to try and force a move because United never really catered the team to extrapolate, his best attributes to get the best out of him? They never signed a world-class defensive midfield, for example, to play in that 4-2-3-1 with him if he is going to be at the base of midfield. Do you think he has a right to sort of push back now he doesn't believe in the project, or that United have effectively handed Bruno Fernandes? I mean, he deserves it, doesn't he? But he's got a stranglehold over that number 10 position now. So if he doesn't see a future for himself playing in his ideal position, then is he within his rights at the age of 27 to start leaning against Man United in the public domain?
I think he would be more within his rights if he was playing really well. But it feels a little bit like he's downing tools with the comments from Mino Raiola, and I don't think he will. I think he'll still have an impact in this Manchester United season, which is probably half the reason I don't think he'll be sold in January. He's still a useful asset to Manchester United throughout the course of the next 8 months. But I think to say... you side with Pogba because we never signed the world-class defensive midfielder. It feels like that's the argument used by a lot of Paul Pogba fans. And to a level, I can see where they're coming from a little bit. We never had a Kante alongside him, I suppose you could say. But, we did bring in Matic, who had a superb 6 months, and that definitely freed Pogba up a little bit. That was when Paul was playing some of his best football at Manchester United. But the best players in world football. The truly world-class players cater for themselves. They don't need to have 2 or 3 players around them to make themselves better. Look at what Steven Gerrard did, for instance, at Liverpool towards the back end of his career when he was playing with some absolute dross in that midfield, still just running every single game single-handedly, effectively. Do I think Pogba has either the attitude to do that? Not really. I think he would rather be in Italy, where the game pace is about 50% of the speed of the Premier League, and he knows that he can dominate games playing at about 75%. That's where I think Pogba wants to be, and the same can be said about France. So I don't agree with the catering argument, but he's definitely not had the best backing at Manchester United. I just think the best players get through without that. Pat, what do you think about the whole Paul Pogba situation? Do you think he is overrated, and where do you see him going?
I don't think he really is overrated, and I think like all this talk about like, oh, he's not consistent, he doesn't do this stuff. Well, he was like, their top open chance creator for 3 seasons running. You have to be consistent to do that. You can't just do it in like 3 games. You have to do it across the course of the season. I think he gets criticised when United, say, fall apart defensively in a way that, say, Bruno doesn't, and Matic got away with for a period as well.
But do you think that's because he's
Matic was horrible defensively, but everyone was like, what a great season Matic has had,
I would agree, but not to the level Pogba is. Pogba is so poor defensively.
Yeah, but Pogba's not a defensive midfielder, so like I give him a little bit more leeway there. Like I don't think that Pogba's been at his best, though I do think that this is often something that happens with young players, young midfielders who can do a bit of everything. As time goes on, people start to say, what sort of a player is he? And they try and like actually give them a defined role. And so Pogba became more of a creative player and much less of a true box-to-box player with high defensive output, which he did actually have for a couple of seasons at Juve. And now he can't quite get that back. You do tend to get a little bit slower. You do tend to develop patterns of play in your late 20s. You peak physically at about 23, 24 in terms of speed. So I suppose that could play into it. I guess that I completely kind of agree with Hamill, to be honest, about like, this would not be an issue if United have recruited better in the midfield around these players, because Bruno, United have a midfielder right now who is contributing a goal or assist every game, and yet they're still not good. Like, it is ridiculous to have a midfielder who's contributing a goal or assist every game and to still not be a good side. And what that shows you is it doesn't matter what attacking output you're getting out of that midfield, because something else is broken in there. And I do think that there's this clear disconnection between the guys who attack and the guys who defend. And the fact that they've never even really tried to solve that problem, like Donny van de Beek was not an attempt to solve that problem. It is kind of beyond me, to be honest. Like, I think they should, at the very least, like, I'm not saying that like if they'd got those correct players that Pogba would have truly blossomed, but you were talking about doing the hard yards. At Juventus, the hard yards were not as hard as they are now. He was younger, he was eager to impress, and he had better players around him. He had Pirlo, who actually like did more defensive work than he got credit for, and he had Vidal, who at that point in time was the best box-to-box midfielder in the world. Like, I mean, a real ground-eating defensive monster, and a really good role model for Pogba as well. Well, not in discipline terms, but in the way he played. And so I think that now that he is given more to do, he's blamed whenever anything goes wrong. And I also kind of I don't have that much sympathy with the fans being like acting like they feel betrayed because Pogba wants out of their club. Like, fans always want to have their cake and eat it. Fans demand the right to bitch about their players in really quite a cruel way at times, but also think that those players should always act with the utmost loyalty and love for the fans and the club. I do think that that's a little bit unfair. Like, Paul Pogba is a man. He spent the last 4 years like being pretty roundly abused on social media, and not just on social media. And I think that does kind of have a toll. I was really disappointed in a way. I mean, obviously it makes sense why they did, but I was disappointed in a way when United activated that year extension in his contract, because I thought it would have been really interesting if he went to, say, a Man City or a Chelsea next summer, because I could really see a gap for him in those sides. You could imagine a 3 of Conte, Kovacic and Pogba, behind Chelsea's front line, or you can imagine him, in that floating role between midfield and attack. Because the thing is, Pogba's not a good enough defender really to play in a double pivot. He isn't. But if you play him as a 10, you're going to get more defensive work out of him than you'd get out of a classic 10, I think. He's still very athletic. He's still got great legs. And to a certain extent, some of this is just, he hasn't worked out with the manager. Like, it's possible that you bring in the right manager and Pogba would, really blossom. But I can completely understand why, given everything that's happened over the last few years, United have said, we've basically got the choice between Ollie and Pogba, and we're choosing Ollie.
I don't even know whether that's the case, whether they're choosing between the two at this stage. I think like they're resigned to losing Pogba. No matter what happens, Pogba's not going to renew his contract.
I mean more like they might think, oh, okay, Pogba's our most expensive player. A new manager might get more out of him, but we're not going to sack Ollie to get that new manager to get the most out of Pogba. We're just going to keep Ollie.
Well, I just think it would be such a risk, wouldn't it? If you chose to side with Pogba and then Pogba left anyway. I think, like I said earlier, I just don't begrudge Pogba a move away in the same way I didn't begrudge Lukaku. Like, let him go. Let him have his time at Juventus. I'm sure he's going to do a really cracking job for them. Do I ever think Pogba's really going to be the Pogba we all thought he was going to be when he was sort of 23, even at Juventus? Probably not. Like, I don't think he's ever going to be the best centre midfielder on the planet now. Because there are players like Bruno, there are players like KDB who I just think Pogba's not going to hit the level of KDB.
If you were his agent,
by going back to Italy.
If you were Mino Raiola, I mean, first of all, we'd all be a lot better off. Probably be shooting this in a studio rather than in our bedrooms. But if you had a client that was 27 that was playing a top club, but under Ollie, and Mino Raiola has said on the record a few times that he doesn't buy into the sporting project at Manchester United, and for all his misgivings, let's say, he generally has his client's best interest at heart. I mean, that normally goes hand in hand with landing a fat paycheck. I think he had 30 million when Pogba moved to United in the first place, right?
Yeah.
But do you buy into that at all? Like, why should my client, Paul Pogba, who has the potential to be one of the best midfielders in the world, be playing under a guy wherein, United haven't exactly progressed. They're not stagnated either, but they're not in any, certainly not in any danger of winning anything major.
Well, I just think if you're Mino, like, you're obviously going to try and get that move, and you can't begrudge the agent for doing that. But equally, it's just the way he does it, isn't it? It's the way he goes about it that I'm not the biggest fan of. But that's because I'm a Manchester United fan. If it was a Celtic player, you'd be saying the same thing. If it was an Arsenal player, you'd probably be saying the same thing. I think for Mino, though, surely he would be saying to Paul, look, we can get more money if you're playing well. Do you know what I mean? If Pogba's absolutely flying right now, he's going to cost more money. He can demand more wages, and he'll get a bigger agent fee. I think the worse Pogba plays, the less money they end up bringing through the door.
But does that not back up the argument that, like, he's not turning his form like on and off like a tap? There is just something slightly more like endemic. There's something that's beyond like him putting in a good performance wrong at Manchester United, or at least in the way that Manchester United are using him, let's say. But
I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong in the way Manchester United are using him, because he wants to play as a 10. That's clearly the best position for him, and Bruno's a better player than him right now. So you can't swap Bruno out for Pogba. It would make absolutely no sense. So trying to get them both into the same team simply isn't working for Manchester United. We've tried it 2 or 3 times. It doesn't happen. So I just think when he goes to Italy, he's inevitably going to be really good for Juventus. Do I think he's going to win a Champions League with Juventus? No. Do I think he'll win a league title? Yeah, because they win the league title every single year, and the same thing would happen if he went to PSG. I don't think he's ever going to be. And to be honest with you, like, I was looking at some of Mino Raiola's client list today. Like, he doesn't have that many players on his client list that are sort of Champions League winning level. Like, he's got Verratti on there, who probably the closest thing he's had to a Champions League in recent years, and he's got Haaland, obviously, who might win it in the future. But I'd say Pogba is like, it's like his baby, isn't it? It's like his number one client, really, Paul Pogba, right now. So he's just trying to milk it for all it's worth. Like, that's his cash cow. And you can't begrudge him it, but if you're a United fan, you can see why it's so irritating. Like, it just rubs you up the wrong way. And even his comments, like you said, after 18-19, when he actually had a good season, to then come out and say, oh, it's time for a new challenge, Pogba, is like just throwing it all under the bus, like straight away. Like, where's the respect to Manchester United? I know, Pato, I agree with you. Some fans showed him absolutely no respect, and that's totally within his right to say it. But just for me, I was a bit like, oh, I thought he was going to absolutely go on and smash it now, which is a bit of a shame. And I am really sad to see it not work out, but it just seems like it's never going to work out, so it's time to cut your losses now. I'm interested to see how much you guys think United could get for him in the market right now. Do you think United can even get 40 for him?
I'll come in first then. I think they'd probably take 50 mil in January. Like you said, there is a shortage of suitors. There's some interesting swap deals that could maybe be facilitated, right? Like we've kind of toyed with the idea on Eurofootball Daily about swapping in for Dybala or swapping in for Isco, other big players that sort of don't fit, as a piece of the larger puzzle at their various clubs. So maybe United can do something a little bit more creative with him, because after January, like Pat said, in the summer, they're certainly not. He will just probably run that contract down, won't he, in order to land a huge wage packet at his next club and just be a bit part player for another season. But I think they would probably entertain offers of 50. Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I don't think he'll run his contract down. United just won't let it happen. They'll sell him next summer, because he'd be 29 by the time he left then, and that would really feel like latter stages of his career. And like that narrows his options, I think, even more of a suitor.
Mate, you can play to year 35 in Serie A. I'll be absolutely fine until about.
You can pay to year 45 in Serie A for Paul Pogba. Go on, Pat, how much would you
centre mid. Well, this is the problem, I think, all along. United have always whined about Pogba, fans have whined about Pogba, but it's because for the last few years, every summer, United have demanded an absolutely obscene fee for him. So
I think it's like 150 mil about 2 seasons ago.
Yeah.
Madness.
I think 40 to 50 mil is probably a reasonable price next summer. But it's at the high end, and I could imagine United saying, no, we want 70 mil because they're that stupid, and then he will run down his contract and leave on a free. So I don't know. I think United just need to get him off the books and start rejigging that midfield. So I would probably say I'm coming round to the idea that often it's just better to sell and rebuild the squad than to eke the maximum possible value out of a player. I don't think that.
I've got a question for the pair here. So starting with you, Pat, would you take? Obviously, Real Madrid offered 30 mil plus James Rodriguez at the start of the season, didn't they? If you could go back in time, would you accept that deal? Do you think that was good value?
Probably not.
We had Bruno then. We had Bruno.
Yeah. James can play off the right, but at this stage of his career, you don't really want him there. Stuck out there. Yeah. I don't know. And it's another big contract for a player who's older than Pogba. I don't know.
He's only on 70, 80.
Are there any players that you lot would take?
Huh?
Is there any players you lot would take in a swap deal from either a Madrid or a Juve or a PSG? Is there anyone you think United should go there and go, okay, you can have Pogba, all we want?
Is the outstanding candidate, I think. Unless...
but where does he play?
Unless I'm missing some... Yeah, similar, maybe second striker, 10. Has played as a 9 before. Plays. If he can be, utilising the right wing, then fine. It's difficult, isn't it? Who? So if you're in dire need of a right winger, is there anyone at those various clubs that you've mentioned? Juve, PSG.
Is Kulusevski playing off the right, or is he playing off the left now?
He plays off the right. You're not.
Yeah, he's only just joined the club, hasn't he? Really.
I think at Real Madrid, if it had been in the summer, you could have gone to them and maybe said, you know what, you don't seem to be wild about Militao, maybe Militao and Reguilon, we'll take both of those off your hands, or Militao and Hakimi or something, maybe you could have engineered something there, but now it feels a little bit. I don't particularly like the Real Madrid squad for Man United.
What about Marquinhos? Do you think I saw him being quite heavily linked in this move. I just think it's unrealistic to think he would swap PSG for United in this transfer. Like, he'd be a good signing.
He's so
'cause
crucial.
He can offer you defensive midfield and centre back cover, but why would PSG let him go?
He's
right?
so crucial to PSG, isn't he? Particularly without Thiago Silva there now. He seems like the one player who's really keeping that defence together. Although I do like, Diallo actually played really well against United. He's been shifted out to left back, hasn't he? Kimpembe, I think, will be a fantastic player, but for now they probably need that experience that is invaluable to them. Joe, anyone remaining that we've missed out
Not
on?
really.
Like we often talked about
Not
Rabiot
really.
in the past. Like
I'll have Delict if Juve still hate him.
Yeah,
but I
I
don't
was
know
gonna say.
whether Pirlo likes him or not.
Juve have a surplus of
but
midfielders,
yeah, I just think-
so maybe you could go shopping there. But it's not really going to be preferable for United either way, is it?
Yeah, I'd just take your money and look to reinvest it if you're a Manchester United. Should we move on to another mailbag question then? All right, let's do this one from MCFC Azza. Obviously, Man City versus United was yesterday, and he says, is the title race over if City lose to United? Currently 7th on 18 points, but have only played 10, the same as United. So do we think it's over if they lose? It's definitely not, is it? Way too early.
Yeah, I don't really think so. Like Liverpool, I thought that there was a period a couple of weeks ago where I was like, okay, Liverpool have like clicked into gear and are now going to pull away, but they've actually had a couple of like pretty poor performances since then. There was obviously a great win over Wolves, but I don't know, like they're basically playing without control at all. They're playing kind of like early Klopp at Liverpool or like Klopp at Dortmund, where they're like, they press really high. Their midfielders are getting more freedom than they've had in the last few years to like go and attack in the absence of like, totally fit fullbacks. And so like they're not quite as dominant as I thought they were gonna be by this stage. I don't know. I think that in this season, like I'm the title race could easily like just burst open quite quickly. Like I don't know, man. Like I'd be hesitant to say it would be over in December. Like the difference is not that big.
Yeah, totally agree with you. Like, City always beat United at Old Trafford anyway, and Aguero's back fit and he always scores at Old Trafford, so I wouldn't be too worried if I was a City fan. Hamster, over or not? Surely not.
I'm still thinking about that swap deal, to be perfectly honest. In my head then, I was just going Bernardeschi, Demiral, maybe Bentancur, get two of them. No, it's not over, is it? Like, I don't know if you mentioned it just then while I tuned out, but, I mean, if City beat Manchester United, they've got a very decent run before Chelsea in order to gain ground again on the top clubs, haven't they? Some very winnable games: West Brom, Southampton, Newcastle, Everton. So yeah, we definitely haven't heard the last from Manchester City after 10 game weeks. Yeah, shock. I included a question about Harry Maguire, and you just skipped over it there. But I actually wanted to know your opinion on Harry Maguire this season, like because. It seems like he's been quietly putting some form together, but people are kind of just waiting for him to fuck up again, right? And I just wanted to know where you stood as a Manchester United fan on his form, because obviously things off the pitch affected him at the start of the season. But is he back to somewhere that resembles his best?
I think he's fine. Like, he's obviously always going to be a meme character, isn't he? Football Twitter are always going to hammer Harry Maguire because of the way he plays, his sort of size, his shape, his slow turning circle. He's an easy target, isn't he? But yeah, he's been solid for Manchester United after kind of 4 or 5 weeks that were really, really poor at the start of the season, and then one high profile mistake against Leipzig, letting the ball kind of run across him, maybe a few poor errors against West Ham, and he's kind of back in the mud, isn't he, straight away amongst
it's
all of
personified
football
by the actual, like the question that was sent in. It says, is Maguire worth more than £1? I mean, that pretty much sums people's attitude up towards him, doesn't it? But
yeah, it's just silly, isn't it? Like, at the end of the day, he's a player who plays pretty much every minute of every game for Manchester United. And yes, he's probably not the greatest centre-back in the world. Like, what do people expect from Harry Maguire other than he's going to be pretty solid, play every minute of every game, and he's like going to keep it pretty simple at the back, but he's good with his feet. That's what you're going to get out of Maguire. You know what it's going to be. Like, it's fine. It's obviously a meme because United massively overpaid for him. If United had paid 40 or 50 million for him, people would be like, oh yeah, it's another solid performance by Harry Maguire. Because it's 80, he's just straight back in the mud. So yeah, I think he's fine. Good distributor from deep, probably better than most of our midfielders at that, but makes high-profile errors and individual errors which just aren't good enough for United, and at times it costs us. But it's the story of every player at United that's not called Bruno Fernandes or Marcus Rashford, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, let's do one from Mr. Kirky Simmons. He says, in their prime, which two defenders would you take? Ferdinand, Cannavaro, Puyol, Nesta, Thuram, Stam.
Ugh.
Tough. So we're forming a partnership here. Who would you take? Which two?
Go on, Pat.
Well, the second one's going to be kind of determined by the first one, right? Because you want them to fit together. If I went for my favourite players here, I'd probably pick Nesta and Thuram. But I think probably the most complete defender here is Ferdinand. And if I have Ferdinand there as that guy, who's the passing hub in the back line, because he's the best passer of all these guys you've got on this list here, then I kind of want like a tough guy next to him, which means that then I don't know. I mean, Stam is like the real tough guy here, isn't he?
Fearsome that partnership. Jesus.
But I think actually I would probably go Ferdinand Nesta maybe, but it feels like a betrayal because I loved Lilian Thuram. I loved him so much, and he was world class at centre back. He was world class at right back, but I never really loved Cannavaro, Puyol, or Stam in the way that I loved like Thuram and Nesta. And it's not about love with Ferdinand. I just have to admit that, even though I'm not going to say that, I think he was genuinely an amazing defender. Until Van Dijk, I think Ferdinand was the most complete centre back probably ever to play in the Premier League.
Ooh, yeah, I think I would go Ferdinand and Cannavaro. As my two. I didn't really experience enough of Stam. I feel a little bit like I've only ever seen highlights of him. He's a bit before my time. Same probably of like Thuram. I didn't watch enough of him. Yeah, I think I would just go Ferdinand and Cannavaro just because when I was like growing up, those were the guys at centre back. Puyol more so like in the latter stages, but I also feel like Puyol never had to do an awful lot of defending comparatively to some of these blokes in that Barcelona team. Just he was obviously outrageously good, but probably had to do the least amount of defending of any of these players because they had about 98% of the ball in every single game. So I'll go Ferdinand and Cannavaro.
I think the league you're playing in matters here, though, right? Because if you're playing in the Prem, like Cannavaro, like risky, amazing leap on him, great anticipation, but I'm not sure I want your like 5'10", 5'11" centre back when I'm going away to Burnley. He's getting dropped for Maguire. If I'm Man United going away to Burnley, as amazing as he is,
that could be the first time anyone's uttered that sentence ever, mate, in the history.
Mate, Chris Wood's gonna have his way with Cannavaro.
Yeah,
that's. I just want that clipped. By the way, somebody just clicked that Pato saying he would drop Cannavaro for Maguire. Just isolate it. Yeah. Just no context around.
I stand by that. I don't care.
Hamster, who would you go?
Instinctively, when I saw this question, I went Ferdinand Puyol straight away, but.
I knew you were going to pick Puyol. I'd have put all the money I have on you going straight for Puyol.
Because I just love the bloke. It's aside from him actually being a really decent guy when we met him, I actually think his role in those sides was underrated. And
definitely.
he effectively moulded Piqué into the sort of the next version of him, the defensive stalwart, right? Where pretty much if that person isn't performing in that system or isn't a complete defender, I do think it can come undone. And we're seeing that. We've seen that with recent iterations of Barcelona, right? Where there's not been, I mean, Piqué's still been there. His form's fluctuated a little bit, but there's not really been an outstanding centre-back partnership since, unless I'm missing someone really obvious. I don't think I am.
Well, Mascherano was pretty good when he played centre-back. Mascherano and Piqué was arguably their best centre-back pairing since then.
El Jefe, Mascherano. I do forget about him as a centre-half, but then that could dispel the myth with Cannavaro. I suppose you're talking Premier League specifically. I'm going to stick with Ferdinand Puyol, but I do think Nesta is probably, by people 25 and under, I would invite them to go and sort of revisit his career because I do think he's chronically underrated as well in terms of the pantheon of great defenders.
I think Puyol as well deserves credit, like Thuram, for being versatile enough to play fullback as well. Like, I mean, Thuram was a much better fullback than Puyol was, but being able to play there for an elite side is a real sign of defensive quality, of match intelligence, which is what I always loved about Thuram and Marcel Desailly, you know, like basically all the guys who played for France in the 98 World Cup.
Class. And I also think that like Puyol was I just love his story as well. Extremely late to the game. I think he trained as a right winger to start off with, and then he just became this combative centre half with that lion's mane of hair, and like he was in one-on-one situations. I can't recall a Champions League game where anyone got past him. I'm sure there is, but yeah, I'm going to stick with that, Thomas. Go on.
All right, let's do another one then. Last one before we do a personal, I guess. Jack Egan says, "What's the most interesting transfer room you've seen so far going into January?"
Oh. Christ, I've not got one straight off the bat.
There's not an awful lot, is there, of rumours that I've seen going into January. Most of them revolve around sort of centre backs for Liverpool. I did see Cristiano Ronaldo linked to Man United, which is obviously never going to happen. Grow up. But in terms of a swap deal in the summer, Cristiano for Paul, and now we're talking. If anybody fancies it, I'll be well willing to do that, Juve.
Christ, the fact that would actually be a win for
Tough
both
one,
teams is unreal. That a 35-year-old on staggering wages for a 27-year-old that should be in his prime, and yet both teams would somehow come out of that better. What about at Arsenal, Pax? I think it's pretty funny that like all of a sudden you have a bit of money to part way with. Like, where's that 30 million come from for Szoboszlai?
I don't know if it has. Like,
I don't think it exists.
I think it's a figment of people's imagination. Like, I don't know. It does seem like we might have potentially, some money to spend in January. Partially, it's because Kroenke restructured our debt to him.
Right.
So I think that we do actually have more cash on hand, and obviously, Partey just was paid not out of our transfer war chest, but just out Kroenke just paid it straight up. I don't know though. The problem is interesting is throwing me here because I've talked so much about Buendia and Szoboszlai as potential Arsenal signings that they're now no longer interesting to me at all. And if there's one team in the world which does not deserve the epithet interesting, it is Arsenal. We are the dullest team in football. But I don't know. I suppose that I think Ricky Puig might be an interesting loan signing in January. I think he'd be interesting at Arsenal actually, and quite a few places. He's a central midfielder who puts up very good creative numbers, really good dribble numbers, great pass progression, and will press. So I think there'd probably be a home for him in pretty much any side that plays a three-man midfield.
Do you think Alenya would be available as well? I've consistently been impressed with him when he started, yet he always seems to be on the peripheries.
I don't know, really. To be honest, I haven't seen that much of him. I'm not really Alenya curious.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. He seems... I guess in my mind, I've just lumped him in with guys like Carlos Perez, where I'm like, yes, you will go to Roma, and then you'll be playing for, Herrenvein in, 3 years' time. I don't care about you.
Which career path are you thinking of? It's the bloke that went to Stoke, isn't it? What's Afellay?
Oh, I'm thinking of Boyan. I'm thinking of Afellay. Yeah. I'm thinking of Cuenca. I'm thinking of Christian Teo. All those
Christian
guys.
Teo actually found a bit of a home at Betis very briefly, didn't he? Yeah, there is.
And didn't he go to Fiorentina as well?
Yeah. There's
about 200 examples of these players, by the way. There's so many examples of these players.
There's always a guy coming through their academy who they're like, watch out. This guy is going to be an incredible player. And I wouldn't trust him to clean my fucking boots. It's just it's always just some weird child with cystic acne who's going to end up playing for Roma. So I'm just not that interested in Barcelona's academy. I think it's shit now. Is it good? Does it produce anything anymore?
It's hard to tell, isn't it? The whole club's such a fiasco at the moment. It's really hard to tell.
It's such a mess. It actually makes me angry thinking about Barcelona just because they're so poorly run.
They're going to have to sell them as anyway, aren't they? Turn it into a fucking Premier Inn or something because they're at 400 million in debt.
Mate, the Camp Nou will be like a Pret in 3 years' time. It'll be the draftiest, the worst. It won't even be the nicest Pret. It'll be one of the worst ones. It's a
Jesus.
fucking dump.
Not even a Pret, it's a
It'd be one of
Greg's.
those green Prets.
Oh, but
It'd be one of those green
Oh.
Prets they have in Soho that doesn't
Oh,
serve
they're the
any
worst.
meat in there. The vegan
They're the
Prets,
worst.
or whatever they're called. All right, so we're just overall saying there's not that many interesting January transfers, by the way. I suppose Pogba's probably going to end up being the most interesting one if he does indeed leave. Let's
He's
wrap
not
it up
going
then.
to leave.
Yeah, he's not. With a personal question from Legend McCoy, who says, what toppings do you take on a burger?
Whoa.
Wow, it depends where you are, I think. It depends what burger restaurant you're in. I like to go quite simple.
we-
Though. I don't like a big stacked burger that falls apart in your
Nah,
hands.
should we create
I
a
know
few
what you
ground
mean.
rules?
I
Are we
agree.
going beef? Beef burger, right?
Yes, yes.
Come on.
I think the big, like, if it's a big tall one and it's like crumbling, but the bun's gone all soggy,
What?
I get really irritated.
The ones,
with that. I like
the ones
it
you
quite
get at like the
small,
Hungry
biteable.
Horse that are like the mega triple stallion burger, and it's like £6, and you know that the cow has suffered big time in order for you to have that
Or the
much
ones
meat for that cheap. Yeah,
The ones you see on Instagram as well, where I'm like, there are like 6 like patties on it, and then someone's pouring like raclette. There's like molten cheese, and I'm just like,
pouring over
mate,
the top. How do you eat it?
America needs to start all over again. Stop eating this way, America. Like,
I know.
I don't want to eat it like out of a trough.
Yeah, if you're eating it with a knife and fork, it's no longer a burger. It's like a
Yeah.
I don't know.
I agree.
Slop.
All over the
That's what it is.
You know what?
It's guaranteed.
You know where
slop.
I'd go just to get us back on track? Straight away, if it's a decent burger joint, a blue cheese. I've become a real blue cheese fiend in my mid to late 20s.
I thought you
I
couldn't
don't
have dairy,
disagree
or
on
is that
that.
gone now? You're allowed dairy again.
I love the myths about my my stomach. No,
Your
it
gut
was
activity.
it was wheat and gluten for a little bit. I mean, it still is, mate. But I'll just crack on. Blue cheese. It's one of those things. When you're younger, you think I'll never like this. This is disgusting, like olives and coffee. But it's I think there's even like blue cheese with chicken burgers as well. I just think there's fewer better toppings. Ooh.
To be fair, if I go in like Five Guys, I always go super simple. I'll just go cheese, jalapenos, lettuce, barbecue sauce. Like,
Okay.
I don't like big tomato that slops all over the place. I keep it really simple. I just like a small biteable burger.
I respect the jalapeno shout. I like
Like, I've got to have a gherkin or something on there that gives it that little bit of like tang.
Yeah, crunch. I
Yeah.
think a gherkin is absolutely indispensable. I never want a burger without a gherkin. Like, I have to have them. Like, just, you need that. It's like putting crisps in a sandwich, man. It's like the crunch
Takes
and
it
the
a level up,
sourness. It's so good. But like, my ideal burger has bacon, cheese. I actually kind of like, I guess, what you'd think of as a bad cheese. Like, I think American cheese is really good for burgers. Like, I think it's objectively
I.
like maybe the best burger like cheese because it melts so well. So I mean, like, bacon, cheese, gherkins, and I'd actually go super simple. I'd go ketchup and mustard. But I will say that, like, probably 1 in 2, 1 in 3 Five Guys orders, I will get jalapenos in there. But to me, a hot burger is like, if I want that, I'll get a chicken burger and I'll get like hot sauce and
Yeah,
mayonnaise
some
on it
buffalo.
and like
Bang.
some jalapenos and just go like really hot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd go hot with chicken for
Yeah, I
sure.
like your thinking.
What about the bun though? Brioche, gotta be, surely.
No.
No, what's the
That's
one with the
so overrated,
sesame
man.
seeds? Sesame seeds on top.
You like the sesame
Yeah,
seed
just a
one,
normal sesame bun, I think is good.
No, I like
A potato
brioche.
bun. No, I think brioche is it's everywhere. Like, there was a period like 5 years ago where literally every burger you got, it was always brioche. And I find like brioche is often, it's like pulled pork. I always think, oh, I'm going to really enjoy this. And then it's always a bit too sickly sweet.
Yeah, I think if you have it with the
I don't
cheese
know.
though, the blue cheese, it kind of complements it nicely a little bit because you get that sweetness.
Oh, I
but
could see
yeah,
that.
you get the I don't know what would you say blue cheese? What's the sensation of blue cheese? I don't know.
It's like sour, tangy.
Yeah.
Like, that's what it is.
Off.
That's why you have like blue
It's
cheese
off.
with like port or something,
Off.
right? You know, something sweet.
Yeah.
All right, should we wrap it up there then? Is the burger topics done? Man United, and Pogba and Maguire's done.
I enjoyed the
think we're
burger
pretty much done,
questions
haven't we?
significantly more than all of the Man United chat.
Yeah, I'm not going to
You know
lie.
what?
I'm hoping this is our last Man United chat in a long time because I'm bloody tired of talking about Manchester United.
True that.
It also made you both go up in my estimation that like none of us even mentioned a real vegetable. Like, none of us was even like, oh, a bit of shredded lettuce or like
No.
a slice of tomato. Like, not even onions. We didn't discuss it. Just like, nah. Like, I just can't be arsed with
Yeah.
it. Like, I don't want lettuce. I don't want lettuce and tomato in a burger. Like,
Agreed. It's too sloppy.
It's also
Yeah,
cold.
wet.
Like when it shouldn't. Like the lettuce, iceberg lettuce shouldn't be that cold. On top of something hot. It's no, not for me.
I like the shredded lettuce in a chicken burger though. I'll say that.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Those were our burger choices. What are your burger choices? Let us know in the comments below. Easy segue out of the show. Pat, what was on the podcast this week?
What was on the podcast this week? I'm getting worse and worse at remembering this, man, in my old
was
age.
it me and you? I think it was me and you. It was me
Yeah,
and you. We were talking about...
It was. What were we talking about, man?
We were talking
Man United.
about...
Oh, we did a
Yeah,
roundup.
it was about Bruno.
We did a roundup. That's why it's hard to remember. Yeah, we talked about Barcelona losing to Cadiz and the mess there. We talked about Bruno like having an absolutely incredible half of football over the weekend. We talked about possible destinations for unwanted youngsters at big clubs in January. So we talked about Odegaard, we talked about Ricky Puig, and we talked about William Saliba. And we also talked about Harry Kane and the attention that he's getting at the moment for that particular tunnelling foul he does, where he like knocks players on their asses.
Oh, Djordjevic, that's
so
it,
yeah,
yeah.
it was. Yeah, so it was an interesting chat actually. I'm sorry I forgot, but I am 31 now, so.
It's all right, mate. I forgot as well. You can listen to that, or you can watch it by clicking the links in the description below. Hamster, anything to plug?
Just FD Explained. They have been popping off recently. I hope you're enjoying them. They're going to be a little bit longer moving forward, sort of merging with everything you need to know. Although Pato's one that's like 5 to 6 minutes on why the USA is producing so much talent has absolutely booted off on Eurofootball Daily. But like 60% of the people that watched it have been Americans. So step up, England.
G'day. Shout out the Americans. I nearly went, g'day, mate. That was Australian. Oh, my God. Right, let's wrap it up there. It's been an awful morning. Thanks very much for watching. See you later.
Bye.